Those were the words my daughter said as she shoved $500 into my hand and told me to be gone by morning. Not because I had done anything wrong, but because her new husband said seeing me around made him uncomfortable. After 40 years of raising her and building her future, that was my final value. $500 and a one-way ticket out of her life. I got on a bus and left that painful city behind. She thought throwing me out would break me. But strong women do not collapse, they adapt. What she didn't know is that just 9 months later, she would be standing at my door begging me to save her the moment everything she took for granted came crashing down. Welcome back to Her Voice Narrative. Thank you for watching this video and watch to the end. Before I continue this story, please let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Subscribe to the channel if you know that forgiveness requires accountability and redemption must be earned through action, not just words, whether you're at the top or bottom. Respect comes from how you treat people. True success is about service, not power, and family is defined by actions, not biology, and you're never too old or broken to rebuild. The kitchen smelled like home. Steam rose from the pot of chicken soup I had been simmering for 4 hours. The same recipe my mother used to make, the one Emma loved as a girl. I had chopped the vegetables into perfect pieces, seasoned the broth just right, added fresh herbs at exactly the right moment. This was not just dinner. This was my language. The only way I knew how to say I love you anymore. Smells good, Mom. Emma's voice came from the living room, but it was distant. Cold. She was scrolling through her phone, barely looking up. I ladled the soup into bowls, arranged them on the table with fresh bread I had baked that morning. Marcus walked in, Emma's husband of 6 months. Tall, sharp suit, the kind of man who measured people by their bank accounts. He looked at the table like I had set out garbage. Linda, is this gluten-free bread? He did not even wait for my answer before pushing the plate away. I cannot eat that. Emma, did you not tell your mother about my dietary restrictions? Emma finally looked up from her phone. Mom, we talked about this. I do not remember us talking about it, but lately I do not remember a lot of things they claim we discussed. The doctor says my memory is fine. I think they just do not want to repeat themselves. Sorry, I muttered, heading back to the kitchen. I will make you some rice. Marcus sighed loud enough for me to hear. Emma said nothing. I stood at the stove, boiling water, feeling the silence press against my back. This house, the one I had helped Emma buy 3 years ago, the one I moved into after my husband Robert died, used to feel like home. Now it felt like I was renting space in my own daughter's life. Linda. Marcus' voice again, sharper this time. Can we talk? I brought the rice over, sat down across from them. Emma would not meet my eyes. The spare bedroom. Marcus began, folding his hands like he was conducting a business meeting. We have been thinking. We need your room. The words did not register at first. I blinked. My room? It is the biggest bedroom, he continued, his tone matter-of-fact. I need a home office. A proper workspace. Your room has the best light, the closet space. It is just sitting there being wasted. Marcus, I try to keep my voice steady. Where would I go? Emma cleared her throat. Finally, she looked at me. Her eyes were hard. Decided. Mom, we have been talking. This is not working. What is not working? This. She gestured vaguely around the table. You being here. It is too much. Too much. I cooked for them. I cleaned. I stayed out of their way. I paid for groceries half the time even though Emma said I did not have to. What was too much about any of that? Emma, I do not understand. You are a burden, Mom. Her voice cracked, but she pushed through it. A liability. Marcus and I are building a life together. We need space. We need privacy. We need you to leave. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the table. Leave? This is my home. It is our home, Marcus said coldly. We own it. We have been more than generous letting you stay here rent-free for 3 years. But Emma is right. It is time. I looked at my daughter, the girl I had raised, the girl I had taught to ride a bike, to braid her hair, to stand up for herself when boys were mean to her in middle school. The girl I had held when her father died because she said she could not breathe from crying so hard. That girl was gone. In her place sat a stranger. Emma, I whispered. Please. She stood up, walked to the counter, pulled out her purse. She counted out $500 in bills, laid them on the table in front of me. Find a motel. Find an apartment. I do not care. But you need to be gone by morning. Morning? My voice cracked. That is not even 12 hours. Get out, old woman. Marcus' jaw tightened. We need your room for my office. Emma did not even flinch. I sat there staring at the money. $500. That is what 40 years of motherhood was worth to her. $500 and a demand to disappear by sunrise. Outside, rain began to fall. I could hear it tapping against the kitchen window. Soft at first, then harder. I thought about Robert, how he used to love the rain. How he would stand at that same window, coffee in hand, and smile at the sound of it. What would he say if he could see this? I picked up the bills, folded them carefully, and stood. My legs felt weak, but I made it to my room. The room that would be an office in a few days. I pulled my 2 old suitcases from the closet. The ones Robert and I used on our anniversary trip to the coast 20 years ago. I started packing. Clothes, shoes, a photo of Robert, my favorite cooking knife, the one I had used for 40 years. 40 years of motherhood, and it all fit into 2 bags. The suitcases felt heavier than they should have as I lifted them off the bed. Not because of what was inside, just clothes, a few books, that old knife, but because of what they represented. Everything I was, reduced to 2 pieces of luggage. I stood at the bedroom door one last time. The room that would be an office in a week. New desk, new equipment. No trace of me left. I turned off the light and walked into the hallway. The stairs creaked under my weight. How many times had I climbed these stairs? Thousands. Tens of thousands. Always with purpose. Carrying groceries, helping Emma move furniture, rushing down when Robert called me for dinner before he got sick. Now I was descending them for the last time, and no one cared. Their bedroom door was closed. A sliver of light showed underneath. They were awake. They knew I was leaving. Neither of them came out to say goodbye. I reached the bottom of the stairs and set the suitcases down by the front door. My hands were shaking. Not from the weight. From the realization that this was real. This was actually happening. The rain hit me like a wall when I opened the door. Cold, relentless, unforgiving. It soaked through my jacket before I had even stepped off the porch. I walked down the driveway, one slow step at a time. The suitcases banged against my legs with every step, but I did not stop. Halfway down, I felt it. A presence. Eyes. Was she watching? Was Emma standing at the upstairs window, seeing her mother walk away in the rain with everything she owned? I did not turn around. I could not. If I looked back and saw her there, saw regret, saw guilt, saw anything, I did not know what I would do. Beg her to let me stay. Tell her I was sorry for being a burden. Break down and cry until she changed her mind. And if I looked back and saw nothing? If the window was dark, if she had already moved on to decorating the office, picking out furniture, choosing paint colors, that would be worse. So I kept walking. The rain plastered my hair to my skull, ran down my collar, soaked through my shoes. Let it wash me away. Let it erase 40 years of bedtime stories and school plays and teaching her how to cook her grandmother's chicken soup. At the end of the driveway, I stopped. Turned around one last time. The house glowed warm through the rain. I had painted Emma's nursery in that house. I had held Robert in that living room the night the doctor told us there was nothing more they could do. And now it was just a house I used to live in. Robert, I whispered to the rain, to the darkness, to wherever he was now. If you can hear me, our daughter just broke my heart. The lights went out. Upstairs first, then the living room, then the porch light. Darkness swallowed the house whole, and I turned away. The bus stop was 2 blocks north. I started walking. The Greyhound station smelled like burnt coffee and diesel fuel. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. I stood at the ticket counter with my 2 suitcases at my feet and $500 in my hand. Everything Emma had given me to disappear. Where to? The clerk did not look up from her computer. Where can I get for $47? She glanced at me, then really looked at me. Wet jacket, red eyes, gray hair plastered to my head from the rain. She knew exactly what kind of passenger I was. Seattle, Washington. Leaves in 20 minutes. Gate 4. I slid the bills across the counter. She printed my ticket without another word. The bus was half empty. I took a window seat near the back, shoved my suitcases into the overhead compartment, and collapsed into the cracked vinyl seat. My whole body ached, not from lifting the bags, but from the weight of everything that had happened in the last 12 hours. The engine rumbled to life. The bus pulled out of the station, and my old life started to disappear behind me. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass and closed my eyes. You are a burden, Mom. A liability. Emma's voice echoed in my head over and over like a song I could not turn off. I had raised her, fed her, taught her everything I knew, and in the end, that is what I was to her. A burden. Maybe she was right. The bus stopped in Portland. A young mother got on, maybe 23, with a baby on her hip and a diaper bag slung over her shoulder. The baby was crying, that exhausted, inconsolable wail that every parent recognizes. She looked around frantically for an empty seat, and I caught her eye. Here, I said, gesturing to the empty seat beside me. Plenty of room. She sank down gratefully, bouncing the baby on her knee. Thank you. Sorry about the noise. Do not apologize. Babies cry. That is what they do. She smiled weakly, but the baby did not stop. The wailing got louder. Other passengers started shooting us annoyed looks. When is the last time she ate? I asked. This morning. I thought I had more formula, but I ran out, and I cannot afford more until next week, and her voice cracked. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the sandwich I had bought at the station. Turkey and cheese on wheat. I had not touched it. Here. You need it more than I do. I cannot. Please. I pressed it into her hands. I have raised a kid. I know what it is like. She took it, tears welling up in her eyes. Thank you. I turned back to the window while she ate. The baby quieted down after a few minutes, probably picking up on her mother's relief. I should have felt good about helping, but all I felt was empty. Am I really a burden? The question circled in my head like a vulture. I had worked every day since I was 16. Waitress, cook, bakery manager, catering business owner. 44 years of work. I had built something. I had provided. And then Robert died. And I had moved in with Emma because she said she needed me. She said she wanted me close. What had she said exactly? I could not remember anymore. Maybe she had never wanted me there. Maybe Marcus had been pushing her to kick me out since day one. Maybe I had been too blind to see it. Did I fail her? Did I fail as a mother? The bus rolled on. Hours blurred together. We pulled into Seattle just after 7 in the evening. The city was gray and drizzly, fitting somehow. I grabbed my suitcases and stepped off the bus into a place I had never been, with no plan and nowhere to go. I stood on the sidewalk watching people hurry past. Everyone had somewhere to be. Everyone except me. Excuse me. I stopped an older woman in a raincoat. Is there a shelter nearby? Somewhere I can stay tonight? She studied me for a moment, then nodded. St. Mary's. About 4 blocks that way. They will take care of you. Thank you. I walked again. Always walking. St. Mary's Shelter was a low brick building with bars on the windows and a faded sign above the door. Inside it smelled like industrial cleaner and old sweat. A woman sat at the front desk, maybe 60, with kind eyes and a tired expression. First time? She asked. Yes, ma'am. I am Margaret. Welcome to St. Mary's. She slid a clipboard across the desk. Fill this out. We have beds available tonight. Dinner is already finished, but I can get you some soup if you are hungry. Thank you, Margaret. I filled out the form with shaking hands. Name, age, emergency contact. I left that blank. She did not comment. You are in bed 28. Second floor. All the way at the end. Bathroom is down the hall. Lights out at 10. She handed me a thin blanket and a small toiletry kit. I climbed the stairs, found my bed, a narrow bunk with a sagging mattress, and sat down. Around me, women were already settling in for the night. Some talked quietly. Some stared at the ceiling. Some were already snoring. I was 64 years old. I had worked every single day since I was 16. And this was where I had ended up. Maybe Emma was right. Maybe I was a burden. I lay down on the thin mattress, pulled the blanket up to my chin, and stared at the water-stained ceiling. Tomorrow. I would figure it out tomorrow. The alarm went off at 5 in the morning, a shrill bell that jolted me awake. Around me, women groaned and shuffled toward the bathroom. I sat up, disoriented, and then I smelled it. Food cooking. But not good cooking. Industrial, mass-produced, oversalted garbage. I followed the smell downstairs to the kitchen. Through the serving window, I could see a young volunteer, maybe 28, dumping instant oatmeal into a pot of boiling water. She was stirring it like cement. No care, no finesse. My cooking instincts kicked in before I could stop them. That is not how you make oatmeal. They called it breakfast. I called it an insult to food. I had been at St. Mary's for a week now, and every morning was the same. Instant oatmeal cooked with too much water. Toast burned black on the edges, raw in the middle. Coffee that tasted like dirt. The women ate it anyway because what choice did they have? I sat at one of the long cafeteria tables, watching a tray of mushy oatmeal get passed down the line. The woman across from me, maybe 55, weathered face, calloused hands, stabbed at her breakfast with a plastic spoon and grimaced. "First week?" she asked, noticing me staring. "Yeah, this does not get better." She pushed the oatmeal around her bowl. "Name is Joan. Joan Martinez. Linda Parker. Well, Linda Parker, welcome to the bottom." She gestured around the cafeteria. "Food is terrible, but it is free.
Cannot complain."
"You should be able to complain," I said quietly. "A woman deserves dignity, and dignity starts with a decent meal." Joan looked at me like I had just spoken a foreign language. "You one of those chef types?" "I used to cook. 40 years. Owned a catering business." "No kidding." She leaned back, studying me. "What happened? Lose your business?" "Lost my family." The words came out before I could stop them. Joan did not pry. She just nodded like she understood. Maybe she did. I turned my attention back to the serving line. The young volunteer behind the counter was scraping burnt toast off the industrial toaster. She was in over her head. No training, no technique, just a kid trying to feed 60 women with equipment she did not know how to use. She dropped a tray. Oatmeal splattered across the floor. A few women groaned. Most did not even look up. The volunteer's face went red. She grabbed a mop, started cleaning, and I saw her hands shaking. I knew that feeling. The panic of a kitchen falling apart around you. The shame of failing when people are counting on you. I stood up. "Where are you going?" Joan asked. "To do something useful." Margaret was in her office, a cramped room off the main hallway, piled high with donation boxes and paperwork. She looked up when I knocked on the open door. "Mrs. Parker, everything all right?" "Margaret, I would like to cook tomorrow. Just one meal. Let me show you what I can do." She set down her pen, her expression unreadable. "We have volunteers for that." "I know, and they're doing their best. But I am a professional cook. 40 years. I know how to make a good meal even with limited resources." "Mrs. Parker, we do not have a budget. We work with canned goods, day-old bread, whatever gets donated. It is not exactly fine dining." "I do not need fine dining ingredients, Margaret. I just need permission to use that kitchen." She studied me for a long moment. I could see the wheels turning. Was I reliable? Would I steal? Was this some kind of scam? "One meal," she finally said. "Tomorrow's breakfast. You make something the women will eat and we will talk about doing it again. But if you waste food or cause problems, you are done." "I will not. I promise." She handed me a key to the kitchen. 5 in the morning. Do not be late. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed 28 listening to the symphony of snores around me and thought about tomorrow. What could I make with canned goods and donations? How could I turn institutional slop into something that tasted like someone cared? At midnight, I gave up trying to sleep. I took the key Margaret had given me and went downstairs. The kitchen was dark. I flipped on the lights, and the industrial space hummed to life. Stainless steel counters, a massive griddle, ovens big enough to roast a whole turkey. It was not the gleaming kitchens I had worked in for 40 years. But it was familiar. It was home. I opened the walk-in cooler. Canned peaches, canned beans, day-old bread. Eggs. Real eggs donated from a local farm, about to expire. Cheese ends. Half a bag of potatoes. Onions starting to sprout. Not much, but enough. I pulled out a cutting board and started chopping. Onions first, diced small. Potatoes cubed. I could make a scramble. Not fancy, but real. With flavor, with care. I worked in silence the way I used to in the early morning hours at my old catering business. Just me and the food, and the rhythm of the knife against the cutting board. At some point Joan appeared in the doorway. Could not sleep either? She asked. Something like that. She leaned against the doorframe watching me work. You really were a cook, huh? Still am. I just forgot, for a little while. Well, Linda Parker, she said, a hint of a smile on her weathered face. I hope you remember by morning because if you mess this up, those women upstairs are going to riot. I smiled. The first real smile I had felt in weeks. Then I better not mess it up. 5 in the morning came fast. I tied on a borrowed apron, stained and frayed but clean, and fired up the griddle. The women started lining up in the cafeteria, grumbling about the early hour, expecting the usual disaster. Joan was first in line. She grinned at me through the serving window. The old woman is cooking today. This is going to be interesting. A few women laughed. Most just looked skeptical. I took a deep breath, grabbed my spatula, and got to work. I had $4.17 worth of canned beans, eggs, and wilted vegetables. And I was about to cook the most important meal of my life. The industrial kitchen was quiet at 5:30 in the morning. Just me, the hum of the refrigerator, and the weight of 60 hungry women waiting upstairs. I had laid out my ingredients on the steel counter, like a surgeon preparing for an operation. Canned black beans, day-old onions, half a bag of potatoes, eggs from the donation bin, a handful of fresh herbs from Margaret's tiny garden behind the building. Not much, but enough. I started with the onions. Diced them small the way my mother taught me when I first learned to cook. Respect the ingredients, Linda, she used to say. Even the cheap ones deserve your attention. The griddle hissed as I swept the onions across the hot surface. The smell filled the kitchen. Sweet, sharp, alive. I added the potatoes, let them brown, poured in the beans with their liquid, cracked the eggs over everything. A pinch of paprika from a donated spice jar. Salt, pepper, fresh herbs torn by hand. Simple, honest, real. At 6 in the morning, Joan pushed through the kitchen door already grinning. Smells like heaven in here, Linda. You sure you did not smuggle in a restaurant? Just beans and eggs, Joan. Nah. She leaned over the griddle, breathing deep. That is somebody giving a care. The women lined up at 6:15. I could hear them through the serving window. The usual grumbling, the scrape of chairs, the resignation of people expecting the worst. I filled the first plate, spooned the scramble carefully, added a slice of toasted bread I had brushed with a little oil, placed it on the counter. Good morning, I said, meeting the woman's eyes. She blinked, surprised. Nobody said good morning in a shelter cafeteria. She took the plate without a word. I served the next woman and the next. Each time I looked them in the eye. Each time I said good morning. Each time I made sure the portion was generous, the presentation as clean as I could manage with plastic plates and institutional serving spoons. The cafeteria went quiet. I glanced through the window. The first woman, a thin woman with hollow eyes, had taken a bite. She had stopped chewing. She was just sitting there, fork halfway to her mouth, staring at her plate. Then she started crying. Not loud, just silent tears running down her face while she ate. Joan sat down next to her. You okay, Rose? The woman, Rose apparently, nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. It tastes like my mother used to make. I have not felt like a person in so long. Another woman spoke up, voice thick. This is real food. Somebody actually cooked this for us. A younger woman with tired eyes and worn hands did not say anything. She just nodded at me through the window, eyes wet, and kept eating like the food might disappear if she looked away. The room filled with the sound of forks against plates. No conversation, just women eating with something close to reverence. Margaret appeared beside me, arms crossed, watching through the window. "Mrs. Parker," she said quietly. "What did you do?" "I just cooked breakfast, Margaret."
No.
She shook her head. "You gave them their dignity back." By 7 in the morning, every plate was empty. The women stood, pushed in their chairs, and several of them came to the kitchen window. "Thank you, chef," one said. "Best meal I have had in years," said another. Joan clapped me on the shoulder. "I told you, Linda. You are not just a cook. You are a miracle worker." I did not know what to say. I had spent 40 years cooking for weddings and corporate events, plating food for people who ate out of obligation. And here in a shelter kitchen with $4 of ingredients, I had finally done something that mattered. I stood in the doorway between the kitchen and the cafeteria, watching the women leave. Some were smiling. Some were still wiping their eyes. All of them looked a little more human than they had an hour ago. For 40 years, I cooked to make money, I whispered to myself. Today, I cooked to heal souls, and I found myself in the process. Margaret caught me as I was cleaning up. She stood in the kitchen doorway, hands folded in front of her, studying me with those sharp, kind eyes. "Mrs. Parker, would you consider staying? Cooking every day? I cannot pay you, but I can offer you a private room and 3 meals a day." "I will stay," I said, my voice cracking. "Margaret, I will stay." She smiled, a real smile, warm and full of relief. "Then welcome to the team, Mrs. Parker. Breakfast is at 6. Do not be late." I had been cooking at the shelter for 3 weeks when the woman with the expensive watch walked in. It was Tuesday evening, dinner service, and the cafeteria was filling up with the usual crowd. Joan Martinez at her corner table. Rose with her support group friends. A new woman named Keisha sitting alone, 90 days clean and counting. I knew their routines by now. Knew who liked extra bread, who needed their stew thinned with broth, who had lost their teeth and needed everything soft. But this woman, I had never seen her before. She stood in the doorway, mid-40s maybe, wearing dark slacks and a gray blazer that probably cost more than my first car. Her shoes were polished. Her hair was styled perfectly. And on her wrist, I noticed it when she reached for a tray, was a watch that could have fed everyone in this room for a month. She did not belong here. That much was obvious. But she moved through the serving line like she did. No hesitation, no discomfort. She just picked up a tray and waited her turn. I ladled the vegetable soup into her bowl, the same generous portion I gave everyone. Added a slice of fresh bread a local bakery had donated that morning. Placed it on her tray and met her eyes. "Good evening, ma'am. Vegetable soup tonight." Made it with care. She nodded once, her expression unreadable. "Thank you." She took her tray and sat down at table 5, right in the middle of the room. Not hiding in a corner, not trying to disappear. Just sitting, eating. I watched her through the serving window while I filled the next woman's plate. She ate slowly, deliberately, tasted the soup with her eyes closed like she was analyzing every flavor. This was not a woman eating because she was hungry. This was a woman studying the food. After a few minutes, she opened her eyes and looked straight at the kitchen window. Straight at me. A chill ran down my spine. Not fear exactly, more like the feeling you get when someone sees through you. When they know something about you that you have not told them yet. After dinner service ended, I was wiping down the industrial griddle when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around. The woman from table 5 stood in the kitchen doorway, tray in hand. "Chef," she said quietly. "May I speak with you? I am not really a chef here, just a volunteer. But sure, what can I do for you?" She set the tray down on the steel counter. The bowl was spotless. Not a drop of soup left. Even the bread was gone. "That was extraordinary," she said. "I have eaten at 5-star restaurants across 3 continents. Paris, London, New York. What you just served me, it belongs in that conversation." I blinked. "It is just vegetable soup, ma'am. Nothing fancy."
No.
She shook her head. "It is not just anything. The depth of flavor in that broth took time. The vegetables were cooked perfectly. The seasoning was precise. You built layers of flavor with ingredients most chefs would throw away. That is not luck. That is mastery. I did not know what to say. I wiped my hands on my apron, suddenly aware of how worn it was. How worn I was. "Who are you?" she asked. "Nobody special. Just a volunteer. Name is Linda. I am staying here temporarily. Long story. I would like to hear it."
"Why?"
I met her eyes.
"Who are you?"
She extended her hand. "Victoria Chen. Most people call me Vic. I own a few businesses. Real estate, restaurants, investments. And I make it my business to recognize talent when I see it." I shook her hand, confused. Her grip was firm, but not aggressive. Confident. "Miss Chen, I appreciate the compliment, but I do not understand what you are doing here. This is a shelter for people who need help."
"I know."
She leaned against the counter, studying me like I was a puzzle she was trying to solve. "I heard about a cook at St. Mary's who is changing lives with canned beans and day-old bread. I wanted to see for myself if the rumors were true." "Rumors? You have been here 3 weeks, Linda. In that time, attendance at meals has tripled. Margaret tells me the women are showing up clean, on time, hopeful. Some of them have started looking for jobs again. You know why?" I shook my head. "Because you gave them their dignity back one meal at a time."
She paused.
"That is a rare gift. And it is being wasted in a place like this." I bristled. "This place is not a waste. These women matter."
"I did not mean it that way."
She held up a hand. "I meant you could do so much more with the right resources, the right support." "Support for what?" She smiled, a slow, calculating smile. "That is what I am here to figure out. Linda, let me ask you something. Do you still have ambition, or is this just charity?" The question hit me like a fist. Ambition? I had spent 40 years chasing it. Bigger events, better clients, building a reputation. And where had it gotten me? Kicked out of my daughter's house, living in a shelter, cooking with $4 of donated ingredients. "I do not understand what you are asking," I said carefully. "I am asking if you want to rebuild, or if you are content to coast on kindness for the rest of your life." "Miss Chen." Vic, I corrected, my jaw tight. "I lost everything 3 weeks ago. My home, my family. I am 64 years old, living in a homeless shelter, and you are asking me about ambition." She did not flinch. "Yes, because I see something in you that most people your age have lost. Fire, purpose, the ability to create something meaningful out of nothing. And I want to know if that fire is still burning, or if you have let it die." I stared at her, heart pounding. "Just think about it," she said, pulling a business card from her pocket and setting it on the counter. "When you are ready to talk, call me." She walked out of the kitchen, her expensive shoes clicking against the tile floor. I picked up the card. Victoria Chen, founder and CEO, Chen Holdings. I stood there for a long time staring at that card while the kitchen emptied around me. What could she want from a 64-year-old woman living in a shelter? "I want you to run a restaurant for me." The stranger's words hung in the air like smoke. I stood there in the kitchen staring at Victoria Chen's business card, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Before I could think too hard about it, Margaret appeared in the doorway. "Mrs. Parker." Miss Chen asked if you would join her in my office. "She says it is important." I followed her down the narrow hallway to a small room barely big enough for a desk and 2 chairs. Vic stood by the window, looking out at the parking lot. She turned when I entered. "Linda, thanks for coming. Please sit." Margaret closed the door behind her as she left, and suddenly the room felt even smaller. "Miss Chen," I started. "Vic," she corrected gently. "Please, Vic." "Vic." I sat down in the worn chair across from the desk. "I need to understand what is happening here. You show up at a homeless shelter, eat my vegetable soup, and now you want to talk about restaurants. Who are you?" She smiled, but there was sadness in it. "Fair question. I own Pacific Coast Properties. 18 hotels, 12 restaurants up and down the West Coast. Revenue last year was just over $300 million. I blinked. "Then why are you eating at a shelter?" She sat down across from me, leaning forward with her elbows on her knees. "Because my mother worked 3 jobs and died at 52. Heart attack in a motel room, alone. too proud to ask for help. Before she died, she experienced housing insecurity for a few months. That is the polite term. The real term is she slept in her car and ate at shelters. The air left my lungs. I am sorry. I was 21, working my first real job. I did not even know she was struggling until after she was gone. Vic's voice cracked slightly. So I made a promise. Every month I visit a shelter somewhere. I eat a meal. I honor her memory. And I test something.
Test what?
Character. She met my eyes. Wealthy people lie to impress me. People who have nothing show me who they really are. I have been testing potential partners for 2 years. You are the first to pass. Pass what? I just served you dinner. No, you served everyone with the same respect, the same care. You did not see donors or charity cases. You saw human beings. And when I complimented you, you deflected. You did not try to sell yourself or ask for anything. You just wanted to feed people well. She paused. That is the rarest quality in this business. Humility paired with excellence.
I did not know what to say.
My hands were shaking, so I gripped the armrests. I have a restaurant space. Vic continued. 2,500 square feet in downtown Seattle. Been vacant for 8 months. Previous owner went bankrupt trying to run it like a fast food chain. But the bones are good. Industrial kitchen. Dining room for 50. Great location near public transit. Why are you telling me this? Because I want to invest $400,000. Renovations, equipment, 6 months of operating expenses. You would have 60% equity. I would take 40. The number hit me like a truck. 400,000. That is, there are conditions, she said quickly. You hire staff from the shelter. Give them real wages, real training, real respect. And every Sunday you serve free meals to anyone who needs one. No questions asked.
Why?
My voice cracked. Why would you do this for a stranger? Vic stood up, walked to the window again. Her back was to me, but I could hear the emotion in her voice. Because someone helped me when I had nothing. A restaurant owner in Portland hired me when I was sleeping in my car, fresh out of college with my mother's funeral bills crushing me. She did not just give me a job. She taught me the business. Believed in me when I did not believe in myself. She turned around. And because you remind me of my mother. What she could have been if someone had given her a chance. Tears burned my eyes. I tried to blink them away, but they spilled over anyway. I will do it, I whispered. Not for me. For these women. To prove they are not disposable. Vic smiled, a real smile this time, full of warmth. Then we have a deal. She extended her hand. I stood up, shook it. Her grip was firm, final, like a promise sealed. She walked to the door, then stopped. One more thing. The name. What will you call it? I thought about the women upstairs. Joan with her weathered hands. Rose who cried over breakfast. Keisha fighting every day to stay clean. All of them deserving more than the world had given them. Fresh Start Kitchen, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Because everyone deserves a second chance. Vic's eyes glistened.
Perfect.
I will have my lawyers draw up the papers. We start renovations Monday. She left, and I stood there alone in Margaret's tiny office staring at my hands. These hands that had chopped vegetables in fancy kitchens. These hands that Emma had called a burden. These hands that were about to build something that mattered. Maybe Emma was wrong. Maybe I was not a burden. Maybe at 60, for I was just getting started. 40 years ago, I opened my first catering business with $2,000 and a prayer. Now, at 64, I was doing it again, backed by a millionaire and a second chance at life. 2 months after shaking hands with Victoria Chun, I stood in the middle of 2,500 square feet of raw potential. The previous owner had left behind grease-stained walls, broken equipment, and the ghost of failed dreams. But I could see past all that. I could see what it would become. The contractor, a serious woman named Sarah, handed me blueprints. Mrs. Parker, where do you want the prep stations? I walked her through the kitchen layout, pointing to corners and measuring distances with my hands. Prep here, close to the walk-in. Grill station there with clear sight lines to the pass. Dishwasher in the back corner. Give them ventilation and dignity. Nobody should feel like they are working in a cave. Sarah raised an eyebrow. You have done this before. Once or twice. By mid-November, the renovations were humming. New floors, fresh paint, stainless steel counters that gleamed under industrial lights. I was there every day watching it take shape. And for the first time since Robert died, I felt like I belonged somewhere. But a restaurant is not just walls and equipment. It is people. I posted a hiring notice at St. Mary's. Within a day, I had 14 applications. Most were handwritten on torn notebook paper. Some had spelling mistakes. All of them broke my heart. Jo Martinez was first in line for interviews. She sat across from me in the unfinished dining room, her calloused hands folded on the table. Linda, I am 57 years old. Nobody hires women like me anymore. I have been applying for 6 months. Nothing. Joan, I am 64. We will be the oldest staff in Seattle and the best. You showed up at the shelter every morning on time. Respectful. That is all I need to know. You start Monday. $16 an hour. Tips, meal every shift, and a bus pass. Welcome to Fresh Start Kitchen. She shook my hand so hard I thought she would break it. Rose came next. The woman who had cried over my breakfast. 51 with gentle eyes and a quiet voice. Mrs. Parker, I used to manage a bakery. Baked half the wedding cakes in this city. Then I got sick, could not work, lost everything. If you give me a shot in the kitchen, I will not let you down. Assistant manager position. You will run prep and help me with menu execution. Same pay, same benefits. I know you will not. Keisha was the hardest interview. 32 years old, 90 days clean, hands that still shook when she was nervous. Mrs. Parker, I have to be honest. I have got a record. Possession. I have been clean 90 days, but I understand if you cannot hire me. Keisha, I do not care about your past. I care about your future. Server position. You will take orders, serve tables, learn the flow. Show up on time, stay clean, and I will teach you everything I know. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Thank you for this chance. I will not mess up. I believe you. December was training. I had Joan, Rose, and Keisha in the kitchen every day teaching them the basics most culinary schools skip. Knife skills are not about speed, I told them, demonstrating on an onion. They are about respect. For the food, for yourself. Every cut matters. Joan practiced until her onions were perfect dice. Rose learned to make pastry dough in under 10 minutes. Keisha memorized the timing on every dish. When to fire the sides, when to plate, when to call for pickup. We built the menu together. Comfort food elevated with technique and heart. Grandmother's chicken soup became our signature. Named after the moment in the shelter when I had realized food could heal. Slow-simmered chicken with vegetables, fresh herbs, homemade noodles. Simple ingredients, perfect execution. Joan's pot roast. Her grandmother's recipe reimagined with red wine, root vegetables, and mashed potatoes. Sunday breakfast. Rose's childhood favorite. Buttermilk pancakes with fresh berries and real maple syrup. Every dish had a story. Every dish had soul. In early January, I hung the wall of hope. Photos of our staff, with handwritten stories beneath. Jo Martinez, line cook. 57 years old. Loves to garden. Makes the best pot roast in Seattle. Rose Williams, assistant manager. Baker for 30 years. Now baking dreams. Keisha Davis, server. 90 days clean and counting. Working toward culinary school. Joan stood in front of that wall for 10 minutes just staring at her photo. Nobody has ever honored me like this, she whispered. You have earned it, I said. The week before opening, I held our first staff meal. We sat together at table 3, and I served them the menu we had built. Joan took a bite of her pot roast and laughed. My grandmother would be so proud. Rose raised her water glass. To Fresh Start Kitchen and Second Chances. We all clinked glasses. Even Keisha managed to smile. At the end of the meal, I handed out paychecks. Advanced payment for the first 2 weeks. Joan opened her envelope, stared at the number, and her face crumpled. Linda, she choked out. I have not earned an honest paycheck in 3 years. You gave it back to me. I gripped her shoulder.
You earned it yourself, Joan.
I just gave you the kitchen. February 1st. Opening day. The line wrapped around the building before we had even unlocked the doors. Vic arrived in a tailored suit looking every inch the businesswoman she was. But when she saw the crowd, she grinned like a kid. Ready? She asked. I tied on my chef's coat, white and pressed with fresh Start Kitchen embroidered on the chest. Behind me, Joan, Rose, and Keisha stood at their stations, nervous but steady. Let's cook, I said. Vic opened the doors. The dining room filled in minutes. 48 seats inside. Nearly 100 people waiting outside. I was 64 years old, and I had never felt more alive. I stood at the pass, the narrow counter between the kitchen and the dining room, watching the crowd through the front window. Young couples, families, business people still in suits. All of them here because they had heard something special was happening tonight. Behind me, the kitchen buzzed with focused energy. Joan worked the grill. Rose handled prep. Keisha restocked plates and wiped surfaces. We had practiced for weeks, but practice never fully prepares you for the real thing. I clapped my hands once. All right, team. They gathered around me, my crew of second chances. Tonight we are not just cooking food, I said. We are proving something. To this city, to ourselves. We are showing that dignity matters, that skill matters, that people deserve more than they have been given. I met their eyes one by one. Joan, Rose, Keisha. You ready? Joan grinned, gripping her spatula. Let's show them what women our age can do. Keisha nodded, calm and focused. Ready, chef. Rose cracked her knuckles. Born ready. Then let's cook. Vic stepped into the doorway, sleeves rolled up, looking more like a server than a millionaire. First seating is ready. 30 guests. Orders coming in. The printer started chattering. Tickets spilled out. Table numbers, dishes, modifications. I grabbed the first one. 2 grandmother's soup, 1 Jones pot roast, 1 Sunday breakfast. Fire table 2. Yes, chef, Joan called. And just like that we were moving. The first hour disappeared in a blur. Orders came faster than expected. The dining room filled with laughter, conversation, and the sound of forks on plates. Through the window, I watched faces change with the first bite. The moment when food becomes memory. At table 4, an elderly man closed his eyes after tasting his soup. When he opened them, they were filled with tears. His companion leaned toward him worried, but he waved her off and smiled. This tastes exactly like my mother used to make, he told the server loud enough for me to hear. A young couple at table 7 photographed every dish. Not for show, but to remember. At table 3, Vic's table, a group of business people ate in silence at first. Then I caught fragments of conversation. We need to bring clients here. Best meal I have had in Seattle. How is this place not famous yet? Then table 9 caught my attention. A young woman sat alone, phone propped against her water glass. She filmed herself eating, speaking easily to the camera. I barely noticed until Vic appeared beside me, smiling wide. Linda, she said. Do you know who that is? A customer. That is Amanda Lee. Food blogger. 300,000 followers. My stomach dropped. Should I?
No, she said.
Do not change a thing. Just cook. So I did. When her order came up, grandmother's soup with extra bread, I plated it exactly like every other dish. With care, with pride. 10 minutes later, Vic showed me her phone. #fresh, Start Kitchen Seattle. Seattle's best kept secret. Chef Linda is extraordinary. Every dish tells a story. Every bite heals something.
Go now.
Over 50,000 views already, Vic said quietly. You're going viral. I looked at the screen, then back at the kitchen. Joan flipped chicken like clockwork. Rose plated sides with precision. Keisha cleared tables with professional focus. Good, I said. We are ready. By 9 we had served everyone. The dining room emptied. The kitchen quieted except for running water and clinking dishes. Joan leaned against the counter, drenched in sweat and smiling. We did it. Rose scrubbed pans slower now. Hardest I have worked in years. Best night of my life. Keisha sat on an overturned bucket, hands shaking, not from cravings but exhaustion and pride.
Thank you, chef. For everything. You earned it, I said.
Vic joined us, loosened her jacket, grabbed a towel, and started drying plates. Good opening? She asked. I looked around. The empty ticket rail.
Clean plates.
My crew.
Yeah, I said.
A very good opening. And then it hit me. For the first time in months, I had not thought about Emma once. Not during service, not during prep.
Not even now.
I had been too busy building something new. Maybe that is healing. Not forgetting, just moving forward. The next morning I woke to 12 voicemails. The reservation system had crashed. The website could not handle the traffic.
My phone would not stop ringing.
I stepped out of my small apartment above the restaurant. Vic insisted I take it and check the messages. The last voicemail was from Margaret. Linda, turn on Channel 5. You are on the morning news. I turned on the TV and froze. There I was, standing in my chef's coat in the kitchen. The headline read, From Shelter to Success. Seattle Chef's Second Chance. I sat down staring at the screen. 64 years old. 4 months ago I had been sleeping in a shelter. Now I was on the morning news. Success has a sound. It is the chime of reservation notifications, the laughter at packed tables, and the silence of a past that has finally stopped chasing you. By March, Fresh Start Kitchen had a 3-week wait list. Food bloggers kept showing up unannounced, filming our dining room, interviewing Joan while she grilled chicken. The Seattle Times ran a feature. 64-year-old chef's second act becomes city's hottest table. April brought numbers I had not dared hope for. 160,000 in revenue. We had hit break even in 3 months, something Vic said most restaurants took 2 years to do. May came with awards. Seattle Magazine named us Best New Restaurant. A culinary foundation sent a scout. Joan cried when I showed her the article with her photo and it captioned, Former shelter resident finds purpose at Fresh Start Kitchen. By June we were pulling in $200,000 a month. Steady profit, real money. I moved out of the apartment above the restaurant into a small place 4 blocks away. 1 bedroom, hardwood floors, a kitchen window that caught morning light. My first real home in 10 months. I opened a savings account. Put away $8,000 the first month, another $10,000 the second. For the first time since Robert died, I felt like I had a future. July arrived with the kind of heat that makes Seattle natives complain. I was sitting in a coffee shop 2 blocks from the restaurant reading the Seattle Business Journal, a trade publication I had subscribed to years ago.
Most of it was boring.
Industry trends, restaurant openings, and closings. And then I saw it. Parker Catering Group struggles continue. 3 contracts canceled. My heart stopped.
Parker.
That was Emma's company. The catering business I had built. The one I had handed her when I retired 6 years ago thinking she would honor what I had created. I scanned the article with shaking hands. Parker Catering Group, once a Seattle staple under founder Linda Parker, has lost 3 major contracts amid mounting complaints. Industry sources cite declining food quality, missed deadlines, and poor customer service. I set the newsletter down, picked up my phone, opened a search. Parker Catering Reviews. The results made my stomach turn. 2.3 stars. It used to be 4.8 when I ran it. The reviews were brutal. What happened to this place? Used to be amazing. Now it is overpriced garbage. They ruined my daughter's wedding. Food was cold. Staff was rude.
Never used them.
Unprofessional. They showed up 2 hours late to our event. Manager did not even apologize. I kept scrolling. News articles popped up. Customer complaints at 2 major events. A lawsuit from a client. Photos of badly plated food. Emma was destroying everything I had built. I sat there for a long time staring at my phone feeling something I had not felt in months. Anger. Not the hot, impulsive kind. The cold, calculating kind. The kind that makes you think clearly. She had thrown me out like trash. Called me a burden. And now she was running my business into the ground, destroying the legacy I had spent 40 years building, ruining the reputation I had worked so hard to earn. Part of me wanted to watch her fail, to let her crash and burn the way she had burned me. But another part, the part that still remembered teaching her to bake cookies at 6 years old, that remembered her crying in my arms when Robert died, that part wanted to save what I had built. Not for her. For the people who depended on that business. For the legacy Robert and I had created together. And a third part, the part that had been growing stronger since I started cooking at St. Mary's, wanted her to learn. To understand what she had done. To face consequences. I did not know which part would win. That night, I was distracted during dinner service. Joan noticed first. "Chef, you good? You have been staring at the past for 5 minutes."
"I am fine," I lied. But I was not fine.
And when Vic showed up for our weekly dinner, a tradition we had kept since opening, she saw it immediately. "Linda, you have been quiet all week. What is going on?" I pulled out my phone, showed her the article, the reviews, the photos of failed events. "That is your daughter's company?" she asked quietly. I nodded. "It used to be mine. I handed it to her when I retired, and she is running it into bankruptcy." Vic studied the articles, her investor brain clearly processing numbers and timelines. "How much trouble is she in?" "I do not know, but it is bad. 3 contracts cancelled. That is not just poor management. That is catastrophic failure. Do you want to know more?" I looked at her. "What do you mean?" "I have resources, Linda. Private investigators, business analysts. If you want to know exactly how bad it is, debts, liabilities, everything, I can find out. But I need to know something first." "What?" "Are you ready to face your daughter again?" The question hit me like a punch. Face Emma. The woman who had kicked me out, who had called me a burden, who had taken everything I had built and destroyed it. Was I ready? I thought about the last 6 months. Sleeping in a shelter, cooking with $4 of donated ingredients, building Fresh Start Kitchen from nothing, proving I was not a liability. I thought about Joan, who had gotten her first paycheck in 3 years because I had given her a chance. I thought about Keisha, 90 days clean and counting, learning to be a professional because someone believed in her. I thought about Robert and the promise I had made to always protect Emma, even when she hurt me. And I thought about the business Emma was destroying. The clients losing their special events. The employees losing their jobs. The legacy being buried under incompetence. Maybe it was time Emma learned what it meant to lose everything. "Find out everything," I said. Vic pulled out her phone, already typing. "I will have a full report in 48 hours. Financial records, vendor contracts, customer complaints, legal issues, all of it." "Why are you doing this?" I asked. She looked up, her expression serious. "Because you remind me of my mother. And because sometimes the best way to teach someone is to let them see exactly what they have done wrong. But on your terms, Linda. Not hers." I nodded slowly. "What do you have in mind?"
"First we find out how deep the hole is.
Then we decide if we want to bury her in it or pull her out and make her dig herself free. They say knowledge is power." I was about to learn every painful detail of my daughter's failure. And each one cut deeper than the last. 1 month after deciding to investigate, I stood in Vic's office on the 20th floor of a downtown high-rise. The view stretched across Puget Sound, but I was not looking at the scenery. I was looking at the conference table covered in documents. Financial reports, vendor contracts, customer statements. It looked like a war room, because that is what it was. Vic's business analyst, a sharp man in his 30s named David, had spent 4 weeks building the case. Now he stood at the head of the table presenting Emma's empire like a surgeon explaining a terminal diagnosis. Total debt, $1.8 million. 3 major contracts canceled. 2 pending lawsuits. Vendor payments delayed by 2 months. The business is 60 days away from bankruptcy. I stared at the numbers. They felt unreal. How had she let it get this bad? And there is this. David continued, sliding a photo across the table. It showed Emma's house. The house I had helped her buy. The one she had kicked me out of, with a foreclosure notice taped to the door. My chest tightened. "Linda," Vic said quietly. "Are you ready for the phone calls?" I nodded. We had planned this part carefully. I needed to hear it from the people who had been hurt. Not from reports. From real voices. The first call was to Susan Chong. 63 years old. She had been my produce supplier for 25 years before Emma was even born. I dialed her number. She answered on the second ring. Chong Produce. Susan, it is Linda Parker. Silence. Then Linda. Linda Parker. Oh my goodness. Where have you been? I have been trying to reach you for months. Long story, Susan. I am calling about the Parker Catering account. How has Emma been treating you? The explosion was immediate. How has she been treating me, Linda? We had to cut her off. 3 months of unpaid invoices. She owes us $32,000. $32,000. We have been in business 35 years. We have never had to sue a client before. But Emma, she will not return our calls, will not answer emails, nothing. My stomach turned. She is not ordering from you anymore? She switched to some cheap frozen supplier. No quality, no care, nothing like what you taught her, Linda. It is breaking my heart watching her destroy what you built. I closed my eyes. I am sorry, Susan. You deserved better. It is not your fault. But Linda, wherever you have been, I hope you are doing okay because that girl of yours is drowning.
We said goodbye.
I set the phone down, hand shaking. Vic handed me a second number. Rachel Torres. Your former assistant manager. I dialed. She answered cautiously. Hello? Rachel, it is Linda Parker. A sharp intake of breath, then quietly. Mrs. Parker. Oh my God. I thought everyone thought you'd just disappeared. Are you okay? I am fine, Rachel. Better than fine. But I am calling about Parker Catering. You are not working there anymore? I quit 4 months ago. Her voice hardened. Emma is a nightmare, Mrs. Parker. She yells at everyone. Blames staff for her mistakes. Cuts corners on everything. The kitchen is falling apart. The food is terrible. It is not the business you built. It is toxic. Rachel, I am so sorry. Do not apologize. You treated us like family. Emma treats us like we are disposable. Half the original staff is gone. The ones who stayed are only there because they cannot find other jobs.
She paused.
Mrs. Parker, whatever happened between you and Emma, I do not know the details. But I want you to know we all miss you, and we all see what she is doing to your legacy. The call ended. I sat there staring at the phone. Vic waited. Finally, I looked up.
It is worse than I thought, I said.
She is not just failing at business. She is destroying people's lives. Susan has been a supplier for 25 years. Rachel worked for me for 12. Emma owes them money, respect, decency. And she is giving them nothing. There is more, David said, pulling up another document. The business is only operating because Emma is delaying vendor payments and using client deposits to cover payroll. The bank is ready to foreclose on everything. The equipment, the vehicles, even her house. I stood up, walked to the window. The city lights blurred through the glass. 40 years, I whispered. I spent 40 years building something that mattered. Relationships with suppliers, training staff, creating a reputation. And she destroyed it in 6. Vic appeared beside me. Linda, what do you want to do? I turned to face her. I do not want revenge, Vic. I want justice. And I want her to understand what she has lost. Not just the money, the trust, the relationships, the things that actually matter. There is a way to do that, Vic said. But it requires capital and timing. I am listening. She walked to her laptop, pulled up a document. The bank is about to sell Emma's debt portfolio to a collection agency. They will buy it for pennies on the dollar, probably 50 cents per dollar of debt. Then they will foreclose on everything, auction it off, and Emma loses it all. No second chances. No lessons learned. Just destruction. What is the alternative? Vic met my eyes. We buy it first. Before the collection agency. You become Emma's creditor. You own her debt. You control her future. The words hung in the air like smoke. How much? I asked. 900,000 for 1.8 million in debt. I did the math. If I bought the debt, I would own everything. The business, the equipment, the contracts. And Emma would owe me instead of the bank. What happens after we buy it? I asked. That is up to you, Vic said. You can foreclose. Take everything. Walk away. Or, she paused, you can make her earn it back. On your terms. Make her prove she has learned something. I thought about Emma, about the girl who used to help me bake cookies, about the woman who had called me a burden and thrown me out into the rain, about the promise I had made to Robert to always protect our daughter, even when she broke my heart. I do not want to destroy her, I said slowly. I want her to understand what it means to lose everything. And then, if she is willing to learn, I want to give her a chance to earn it back. Vic smiled. Then let's make her an offer she cannot refuse. Daughter, you cannot fight a war alone. Fortunately, I had spent 6 months building an army of believers. 2 weeks after deciding to buy Emma's debt, Vic arranged a private investor dinner at Fresh Start Kitchen. After hours. Just 4 women. A 6-course tasting menu. And the kind of money that could change everything. I stood in the kitchen with Joan, Rose, and Keisha prepping dishes I had spent days perfecting. This was not regular service. This was a pitch. And my food had to speak louder than any words. Joan looked up from searing salmon. Boss, these are rich people. Why are we cooking for them? Because I need them to taste what we do here, I said, plating roasted beets with goat cheese. Food is my resume, Joan. If they do not believe in the food, they will not believe in me. They would be idiots not to, Keisha said quietly from the server station. I smiled. Let's make sure they are not idiots. The private dining room glowed warm under soft lights. 4 women sat around the table, all 40s and 50s, all in business attire that cost more than most people's rent. Vic sat at the head, looking every inch the businesswoman she was. I recognized one of them. Patricia Nguyen, real estate investor, owned half the commercial properties in downtown Seattle. If she was here, Vic had pulled serious strings. The first course went out. Butternut squash soup with sage oil and toasted pumpkin seeds. Simple, seasonal, perfect. I watched through the kitchen window as they tasted it. Conversation stopped. Spoons moved slowly. One woman closed her eyes. Patricia set her spoon down and looked toward the kitchen. Our eyes met through the window. She nodded once. By the 3rd course, pan-seared salmon with lemon butter sauce, Vic began her pitch. Ladies, she said, standing. 6 months ago, the woman cooking your meal tonight was living in a homeless shelter. No money, no home, no prospects. Just skill, humility, and a refusal to quit. The investors looked toward the kitchen. I stayed focused on plating the next course. Today, Vic continued, her restaurant generates $200,000 a month in revenue. 3-week wait list. National media coverage. And a culinary foundation scout scheduled to visit next month. She paused, letting that sink in. Tomorrow she is going to acquire her daughter's failing catering business. 6 contracts, $1.8 million in debt. And teach that girl how to run a business the right way. With integrity, with care, with the values that built this industry. Patricia leaned forward. What do you need from us, Vic? $900,000 cash to buy the debt portfolio from the bank before it goes to a collection agency. Linda becomes the creditor. She controls the terms. She decides the future. And what is our return? Another investor asked. Equity in the new holding company. When Linda turns that business around, and you will own a piece of Seattle's next restaurant empire. But more than that, you will be part of a story worth telling. A woman who lost everything and rebuilt it. A mother who taught her daughter the hardest lesson of all. Vic looked toward the kitchen. Linda, come out here. I wiped my hands on my apron and walked into the dining room.
4 sets of eyes studied me.
Wealthy, powerful women who could write a check and change my life. Ladies, I said, voice steady despite my racing heart. I am not doing this for revenge. I am doing this because good businesses deserve good stewards. My daughter forgot that catering is not just about profit margins. It is about nourishing people's most important moments, feeding them with respect, treating employees with dignity. I looked at Patricia. I built that business over 40 years. I trained the staff. I cultivated the suppliers. I created relationships that mattered. And my daughter destroyed them in 6 years because she forgot why we do this work. I am going to remind her. And if she cannot learn, I will find someone who can. Silence. Then Patricia spoke. Vic, if you vouch for this woman, I am in. 400,000. Another investor raised her hand. 300,000. 250,000. I will match Patricia. 400,000. In 5 minutes they had committed 1.35 million. More than we needed. More than I dared hope for. The next week was a blur of legal paperwork. Samuel Martinez, Vic's corporate attorney, sharp-eyed and methodical, drafted the documents. The debt purchase agreement. The terms of ownership. This is airtight, Samuel said, sliding the final contract across his desk. Once the bank accepts, you own everything. The debt, the liens, the equipment, even the mortgage on her house. I sign my name. Linda Parker. The signature that used to mean something. That would mean something again. Vic submitted the offer. 900,000 cash for 1.8 million in debt. 50 cents on the dollar. The bank had been sitting on bad debt for months, watching Emma's empire crumble. They would take it. 1 week later, during dinner service, Vic's phone rang. She stepped into my office, closed the door. I kept cooking, but my hands were shaking. 5 minutes later she emerged, face unreadable. Linda, step outside. We stood in the alley behind the restaurant. The same alley where I used to take breaks during the early days when success was still just hope. The bank accepted, Vic said quietly. As of for this afternoon, you legally own your daughter's debt. Every dollar. Every asset. Every last chance she has. I leaned against the brick wall, breathing slowly. What happens now? I asked. Now Samuel sends the foreclosure notice. Certified mail. Emma will receive it in 3 days. And then Vic paused, then you decide how this ends. That night I sat alone in my apartment staring at the legal documents with my signature. Tomorrow Samuel would send the letter. Emma would open an envelope that would change her life. And she would not know it was for me until it was too late to run. I thought about Robert. About the promise I had made to always protect our daughter. About the woman she had become. I am sorry, sweetheart, I whispered to the empty room. But she needs to learn. And I am the only one who can teach her. I picked up my phone, texted Vic. Send the letter. The next morning I sat in Samuel's office staring at the final foreclosure documents. My hand shook as I picked up the pen. Mrs. Parker, Samuel said quietly. Once you sign these, you legally own Emma Parker's debt. All 1.8 million. She will have 30 days to pay in full or face foreclosure of all remaining assets. Business equipment, property liens, everything. I signed my name. The ink felt heavier than it should. 30 days, I said. That is more notice than she gave me. Samuel sealed the documents in a manila envelope, then prepared the certified letter. I watched him write the address in careful block letters. To Emma Parker, owner, Parker Catering Group. This will be delivered tomorrow morning, Samuel said. Signature required. I stared at the envelope. Emma would open it at her desk. The desk in the office I had built. With her morning coffee. Probably distracted by emails or vendor complaints or whatever crisis was burning that day. And then she would read it. Her face would go white. The numbers would blur. 1.8 million. 30 days. Foreclosure. She would call her lawyer in a panic. Maybe Marcus would try to find a solution when she told him. Maybe, just maybe she would remember the night she kicked me out. The rain. The $500. The cold dismissal. Maybe she would finally understand what I felt. After leaving Samuel's office, I drove across town. I had not planned it, but my hands turned the wheel almost on their own, and suddenly, I was parked outside the original Parker Catering kitchen. The one I had opened in 1987 with $2,000 and a dream. It was still operating, but barely. Old equipment visible through the windows. Peeling paint. A health inspection notice taped to the door. I got out of the car and stood there, hands in my pockets, staring at the building like it might speak to me. 1987. Opening day. Robert beside me. Emma just 5 years old. Her hand in mine. We're going to build something beautiful, Linda. Emma at 8 years old, standing on a step stool in the kitchen wearing a toy chef's hat, helping me frost cupcakes. Emma at 15 decorating her first wedding cake, without my help, grinning like she had won the lottery. Mom, did you see that?
Perfect.
Emma at 30, me handing her the business. It is yours now, sweetheart.
Take care of it.
I leaned against the car, tears streaming down my face. I built this for her, I whispered to no one. Every client, every recipe, every relationship. And she destroyed it. That night I returned to Fresh Start Kitchen after closing. Vic was waiting in my office, her expression serious in a way I had never seen before. Linda, before you confront Emma, there is something you need to know. Something I should have told you months ago. I sat down slowly.
What is it?
Vic took a deep breath. 28 years ago, I met a man at a business conference in Portland. He was charming, successful, married to a woman who ran a catering business and worked 80 hours a week. We had a brief affair. It lasted 2 months. My chest tightened. His name was Robert, Vic continued, voice cracking. Your husband. And Emma. Emma might be my biological daughter. The room went silent. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere outside a car drove past. I stared at Vic. She stared back, bracing for my reaction. I know, I said quietly. Vic blinked.
What?
Robert told me before he died. 5 years ago. In the hospital. He knew. He had always known. And he wanted me to know the truth before he was gone. Vic's voice rose. You knew and you still raised her like she was yours. She is mine, I said firmly.
Vic, you were not there. I was.
I woke up with her at 2 a.m. when she had nightmares.
I taught her to ride a bike.
I held her when her first boyfriend broke her heart. I taught her to cook, to run a business, to treat people with respect. Biology does not make a mother. Showing up every day makes a mother. Vic sat down heavily, rubbing her face. I did not know she existed until years later. By the time I found out, you were already raising her. She called you mom. I had no right to interfere. You are right. You did not. Does Emma know? Vic asked.
No.
Robert made me promise never to tell her. And I keep my promises. Even after she threw you out? Especially after. I stood up, walked to the window. Because she needs to learn she failed a mother, not learn about biology. If I tell her now, she will use it as an excuse. Oh, Linda was not really my mom anyway.
No.
She needs to face what she did to the woman who chose to love her. The woman who could have walked away 1,000 times and did not. Vic was quiet for a long time. Then when we confront her, you stay silent about this, I said firmly.
She faces what she did to me.
To the business. To the people who depended on her. The truth about biology can wait. Maybe forever. You are protecting her, Vic said softly. Even now. I am protecting the lessons she needs to learn. There is a difference. The original Parker Catering kitchen looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I had just grown too big to fit into the past anymore. I stood in the kitchen where I had cooked my first catered meal as a business owner 40 years ago. The equipment was outdated now. Rusted stove, dented pots, a refrigerator that barely kept temperature. But I knew every inch of this space. Every scratch on the counter. Every stain on the floor. It was 7 a.m. Vic and I had the keys. I owned the property now along with everything else Emma owed. We had arrived early to prepare. I pulled ingredients from the cooler. Chicken, vegetables, fresh herbs. Robert's recipe. The one he had made when Emma was 10 and she had gotten sick for the first time. Before his own illness. Just a bad flu that had scared her. He had made the soup to show her he was okay. That food could heal. That love could be tasted. Vic appeared in the doorway watching me work. You are really cooking? She asked. The smell will hit her when she walks in, I said, browning the chicken. She will remember before she sees me. Vic went back to the dining room, arranging documents on the table. Foreclosure notices. Debt schedules. Asset inventories. The evidence of Emma's failure organized like a prosecutor's case file. By 10:30 the soup was simmering. The kitchen smelled like childhood. Like comfort. Like everything Emma had destroyed. At 11 exactly I heard a car pull up outside. What do you think Emma's reaction will be when she sees her mother standing there? Will she break down? Will she get angry? Will she walk out? Emma looked worse than I had expected. 35 years old, but moving like a woman twice that age. Her suit was wrinkled. Probably slept in. Dark circles under her eyes. hair uncombed. This was a woman who had not slept in days. Marcus was beside her looking nervous, gripping her arm like it was the only thing keeping him steady. They walked into the dining room and froze. Vic stood at the head of the table, every inch the businesswoman. Tailored suit, expensive jewelry, the kind of presence that makes people nervous just by existing. Miss Chun. Emma's voice cracked with hope. Thank God. When we got the foreclosure notice, I did not know who owned the debt. But if it is you, we can work this out. I have projections. I have a turnaround plan. I am not your creditor, Mrs. Parker, Vic said coldly. Emma blinked.
What?
Then who is? I stepped out of the kitchen carrying 2 bowls of soup. Steam rose from them carrying that unmistakable scent. Home.
Memory.
Robert. I set the bowls on the table. Met Emma's eyes. Hello, Emma. Marcus. I made lunch. It has been a while. Emma went completely still. Not frozen.
Erased.
Like someone had reached into her chest and stopped her heart mid-beat. Her face drained of color. White then gray. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out.
Mom.
Marcus gasped, stepping back. This is not, you cannot. Sit down, I said quietly. This is insane. Marcus' voice went high. You were homeless. You had nothing. Mrs. Parker. Vic's voice cut through the room like a blade. Your mother-in-law owns $1.8 million of your debt. She owns your house. She owns your cars. She owns your business. She owns every last chance you have. I suggest you show some respect before you lose that too. Marcus went silent, his face pale. Emma finally managed to move. She pulled out a chair, sat down heavily, stared at me like I was a ghost.
How?
She whispered. I placed a manila folder on the table in front of her. I own your debt, Emma. All of it. $1.8 million. I bought it last month. The bank was very happy to sell. But you had nothing. You were sleeping in a shelter. I was never homeless in spirit, daughter. Just homeless in address. I pulled out a chair across from her. While you were destroying what I built something new. I slid a tablet across the table. Fresh Start Kitchen glowed on the screen. 5-star reviews. Revenue reports. Photos of a packed dining room. Articles calling it Seattle's best new restaurant. This is what happens when you cook with integrity instead of greed, I said. When you treat people with respect instead of contempt. When you remember that catering is not just about profit margins. It is about nourishing people's most important moments.
Emma stared at the tablet, then at me. I do not understand.
You will. I gestured to the bowl in front of her. Now eat, both of you, before we discuss your futures. Emma looked at the bowl like it might bite her. Her hand shook as she picked up the spoon, lifted it to her mouth, tasted and broke. Tears streamed down her face immediately. Not quiet tears. Gut-wrenching sobs she tried to swallow back and could not. Her voice cracked, this is Dad's recipe. From when I was 10. When I got sick and was so scared, and he made this to show me everything would be okay. I wanted to remind you what love tastes like. Emma, I said quietly. Before we talk about consequences. She set the spoon down, hands covering her face, shoulders shaking. I waited. Let her cry. Let her remember. Let her feel the weight of what she had done. Finally, she looked up, eyes red, face wet, voice barely above a whisper. What do you want from me? I want you to understand what you have lost, I said. Not just the business. Not just the money. The relationships. The trust. The legacy your father and I built. You threw it all away because you forgot what mattered. I am sorry. The words sounded hollow. Desperate. Mom, I am so sorry. I was wrong. I should not have kicked you out. I should not have called you a burden. I should not have. Sorry does not pay debts, Vic said coldly. Sorry does not feed the employees you laid off. Sorry does not repay the vendors you cheated. Emma turned to Vic, then back to me. Then what? What do you want? I leaned forward, placed both hands flat on the table. You have 2 choices, Emma. Only 2. And you have 5 minutes to pick. Her face went pale again. What are the choices? I held her gaze. Let the silence stretch. Let her feel the weight of her own destruction pressing down. Destruction, I said, or redemption. The terms I was about to lay out would either destroy my daughter or rebuild her from rubble. The choice, as always, would be hers. Emma's question hung in the air. What are the choices? I did not repeat myself. I slid a thick contract across the table instead. You will sign over your business to me, I said.
Today.
Immediately. Emma stared at the document like it was a death sentence. You keep one small contract. The Rodriguez anniversary party next month. Small event. 50 people. A flicker of hope crossed her face. But you will not manage it, I continued. You will work it. The hope died.
Work?
What do you mean? Server. Minimum wage. You will set tables, serve food, take orders for my staff. You will do the work you made other people do while you sat in an office making bad decisions. Emma's face went white. You want me to serve? I want you to remember what it means to serve instead of exploit. To create instead of consume. To earn respect instead of demand it. I leaned forward. If you complete the event with humility and real effort, we will talk about a path forward. Maybe I let you work your way back into the business. Maybe I train you properly this time. But if you quit, complain, or fail, you lose everything. The business becomes mine permanently. You declare bankruptcy. And I have documentation of financial mismanagement, vendor fraud, employee wage theft. I will prosecute. Emma's hands started shaking. And if I refuse? Option 2. I file foreclosure tomorrow. You declare bankruptcy, lose everything anyway. I pulled out another folder. Plus, I will pursue legal action. You stole from your own company, Emma. You used client deposits to cover personal expenses. That is fraud. Criminal fraud.
Connor broke.
Not slowly. All at once. Her face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. She covered her mouth with one hand, shoulders shaking. Mom, her voice cracked, I am sorry. I called you a burden. I threw you out in the rain with $500 and told you to disappear. I took everything you built, everything you and Dad created together, and I destroyed it. She looked up at me, eyes red. Why would you offer me a chance? Why not just end me?
My own voice went thick.
Because you are my daughter, Emma. She shook her head violently. I do not deserve to be your daughter. I paused. Let the words sit between us. Let her feel their weight. You are right, I said quietly. You do not.
Not yet.
She flinched like I had hit her. But you can earn it back. One table at a time. One shift at a time. That is what redemption means, Emma. It is not given. It is earned through sweat and humility and proving you have learned what matters. Marcus spoke up, voice trembling. Mrs. Parker, this is my fault too. I pushed Emma to make you leave. My family lost everything in a business failure 3 years ago. I panicked when we got married. I thought we needed space, needed to cut expenses, he sobbed. I was scared, and I convinced Emma that you were the problem. But you were not. I was. I studied him. 29 years old. Terrified. Realizing the consequences of his selfishness. You will work too, Marcus. I said gentler now. Kitchen assistant position. Same terms. Same wage. You will wash dishes, prep vegetables, take orders from everyone. You will learn that people are not obstacles. They are the whole point. He nodded, wiping his eyes. Thank you. I will do it. I promise. Vic stood then, commanding the room without raising her voice. Emma, let me tell you what I see from the outside, she said. I see a woman who inherited a business and convinced herself she built it. I see someone who valued a business degree over 40 years of master-level practice. I see someone who measured her mother's worth in dollars and found her lacking. She paused. Do not spend your life regretting this moment. Sign the papers. Do the work. Become the woman your mother tried to raise you to be. Emma picked up the pen with shaking hands. I watched her sign document after document. Transfers of ownership. Employment contracts. Terms of repayment. Every stroke of ink was a piece of her ego dying. When she finished, she set the pen down and looked at me. Mom, there is one more thing. I am pregnant.
What?
We found out last week. 3 months along. And her voice broke, I almost did not tell you. After throwing you out, after calling you a burden, I thought I had lost the right to share this with you. But you're going to be a grandmother. My hands covered my face, shoulders shaking. 40 years of motherhood, and she was giving me a grandchild despite everything. Behind me, I heard Vic turn away. When I glanced back, her eyes were wet too. Her biological grandchild. A child she would never claim, but would always know. I pulled myself together, stood up, walked around the table, and placed both hands on Emma's shoulders. You start next Friday, I said. The Rodriguez anniversary party. 5 in the afternoon. Bring good shoes, not designer brands. Real work shoes. Serving is hard on young mothers, but it teaches things business school never could. Emma nodded, unable to speak. Go home.
Get some rest.
Say goodbye to the woman you were. Because Friday you become someone new. They left. Emma and Marcus walking out into the afternoon light. Defeated, but somehow lighter. Like the weight of pretending had finally been lifted. I stood at the window watching them drive away. Vic appeared beside me. You could have told her I am her biological mother. Why did you not? Because today was about her learning she failed a mother, not about DNA. If I tell her now, it becomes a distraction. Maybe even an excuse. Olinda was not really my mom anyway. I shook my head. She needs to face what she did to the woman who chose to love her. When will you tell her? Maybe never. Maybe when she is strong enough to receive it, without derailing her progress. Right now she needs to learn humility. Everything else can wait. Vic was quiet for a long time. Then you are a better woman than I could ever be.
No, I said.
I am just a mother. And that is enough. That night, alone in my apartment, I stood by the window with a cup of tea I did not drink. The city lights blurred through the glass. Friday, Emma would walk into the Rodriguez party. She would put on a uniform. She would take orders. She would learn or she would not. The hard part was starting now. Punishment was easy. Education was the real work. And I had one event to teach her what I could not in 35 years. One event to prove that redemption is not a gift. It is a choice you make every single day. My daughter showed up at 4:55, 5 minutes early. In my industry, that might as well be on time. Emma stepped through the back door of the event venue looking like a woman who had not slept. Dark circles, simple clothes, hair pulled back in a ponytail. The kind of exhaustion that comes from realizing your life just changed forever. I did not compliment her.
Did not need to.
You are early. Good. Joan will show you your station. Joan Martinez appeared from the kitchen, arms loaded with linens. 57 years old, former shelter resident, now my most reliable employee. Morning, boss, she said to me. Then she looked at Emma. You are with me, kid.
Kid.
Emma, 35 years old, MBA from a good school, former business owner, was now taking orders from a woman she would have never hired. A woman she would have called unqualified based on a resume alone. The irony was not lost on me or Joan, or anyone else on my staff. Grab an apron, Joan said. Tables need to be set. We have 50 guests arriving at 6. Linens, silverware, glassware. Everything has to be perfect. Emma stared at the stack of supplies. All of them? You got a problem with that? Joan asked not unkindly.
No.
No problem.
Good. Get to work.
I watched Emma pick up tablecloths. Her hands were soft. Office hands. Hands that had signed contracts and typed emails and never spent 8 hours doing manual labor. Within 30 minutes, her hands were cramping. I could see it in the way she kept flexing her fingers trying to work out the pain. Joan noticed too. You are slower than me, kid, and I am 57. Emma gritted her teeth, kept working. Sweat dripped down her face. Her shirt stuck to her back. Event work is hard, always hard, and there is no break until the job is done. I stayed in the kitchen prepping food for the party, but I watched her struggle, watched her realize what I had done for 40 years, what her father had done, what every person in this industry does because they love the work, not because it is easy. At 5:45, the guests started arriving. Emma was at her station, uniform pressed, hair neat, ready to serve. Marcus was in the kitchen washing dishes, learning what it meant to be at the bottom. The party went smoothly. Food was perfect. Service was flawless. And Emma, she served every plate with care, with humility, with the beginning of understanding. At the end of the night, when the last guest had left and the venue was clean, I called my staff together. Joan, Rose, Keisha, and my daughter.
Good work tonight, team, I said.
Emma, you did well for your first event. She looked up, surprised. Thank you. Be here Monday. 9 in the morning. We have a wedding to prep for. Same position, same expectations. She nodded. Yes, chef. Not mom. Chef. For the first time, she was accepting the hierarchy, accepting that, in this business, I was not her mother. I was her teacher. Her boss. The woman she had to prove herself to. I turned back, looked at her holding her apron, exhausted but present. One event down. Many more to go. And then we will see if you have earned the right to call yourself a businesswoman. 6 months in, my daughter was starting to look like a server, but I needed to know if she was becoming a woman of character. The universe was about to test her. Emma arrived at 8:55, 5 minutes early, every single day for the past month. Her serving skills had improved. Not perfect, but competent. She could balance 3 plates at once now. Set a table in under 5 minutes. Work an event without falling behind. But the real change was not technical.
It was how she treated people.
I watched from the kitchen as Emma showed Marcus, who had moved from dishwashing to food prep, how to properly julienne vegetables. Patient, encouraging, the way I used to teach her when she was young. Keep your fingers curved, Emma was saying. The knife rocks.
See?
You are not chopping, you are guiding. Marcus nodded, trying again. Emma smiled when he got it right. Joan appeared beside me. Kid is coming along, boss. Really cares now. You think so? I know so. She stayed late last Tuesday to help Rose practice plating desserts.
Did not ask for overtime.
Just did it. Keisha spoke up from her station. She helped me last month too, when I was having a rough day. Talked me through it. Made sure I got home safe. I nodded slowly. The staff respected Emma now. Not because she used to be their boss, because she had earned it. That afternoon, Emma was loading supplies into the van when a woman in an expensive suit approached her. I was in the office, but I could see them through the window. The body language. The way Emma stopped, surprised. I did not go outside, but I watched. That night, Emma found me in the office reviewing invoices. Mom, can I ask you something? Always. She sat down across from me, hands fidgeting. Someone offered me a job today. Michelle Santos. We used to work together. She is starting a new event planning company, high-end, exclusive, and she offered me $80,000 a year salary plus equity. Said I could be a partner. Build something of my own. I set down my pen. What did you tell her? That I needed to think about it. She looked up. Should I take it? I studied her. This was the moment. The test I had been waiting for. Do you want to learn to run before you can walk again? I asked. I do not know. Part of me wants to prove I can succeed on my own terms. That I learned something from all this. Nobody succeeds alone, Emma. I did not rebuild alone. I had Vic, Joan, Rose, Keisha, Margaret, a whole community of people who believed in me when I had nothing. Success is never solitary. I leaned forward. The question is not whether you can succeed. It is who you want to succeed with. People who care about you or people who see you as a transaction. What would you do? I cannot tell you. This is your test, not mine. Whatever you choose, you will live with the consequences. The next morning I had business at the bank across the street from a coffee shop. Pure coincidence. Or maybe not. Maybe I knew Emma was meeting Michelle there at 10.
Through the window, I watched them sit down.
Watched Michelle slide papers across the table.
Contracts, probably.
Emma picked them up, read them, set them down, shook her head. Michelle's face went red. She gestured angrily. Emma said something I could not hear, but her posture was firm, resolute. She stood up, extended her hand for a handshake. Michelle did not return it and walked out. I ducked into the bank, heart pounding. Watched Emma walk past on the sidewalk heading back toward the catering kitchen. Her shoulders were straight. Her pace was steady. She had chosen. Back at the kitchen, I pretended I had been there all morning. Emma came in through the back, tied on her apron, and went straight to her station. Joan caught my eye, raised an eyebrow. I shook my head slightly. Not yet. At the end of service, Joan approached me in the office. Boss, the 6-month mark is next week. You going to give her the business back like you promised? I looked through the window at Emma. She was cleaning her station, methodical and thorough, teaching Marcus how to properly sanitize a cutting board.
If she deserves it, I said.
We will see. 1 year ago, I told my daughter forgiveness was not free. Tonight, I was ready to give my answer. The original Parker Catering kitchen looked like it had 20 years ago. I had spent the last 4 months restoring it. New floors, fresh paint, equipment that worked. The dining area glowed warm under soft lights, tables set with real linens, and my mother's old china. This was not just dinner.
It was a ceremony.
Emma and Marcus arrived first. Holding hands. Nervous. Hopeful. Vic came next wearing a simple dress. Tonight, she was not a businesswoman. She was family. Joan, Rose, and Keisha filed in. The women who had watched Emma transform from entitled business owner to humble server. Margaret came too. The woman who had first given me hope when I had nothing. We sat. We ate. Food I had cooked myself. The menu Emma and I had built together over the past 6 months. And then I stood. 1 year ago, I told Emma that forgiveness was not free. That she would have to earn it. Not with words. With actions. Emma's hands gripped her napkin. Marcus reached for her arm. She worked 180 days. Scrubbed floors. Served demanding guests. Swallowed her pride. She showed up even when her body ached, even when her ego screamed to quit. I paused, looked at my daughter. But that is not why I forgive her today. Emma's eyes went wide. 2 weeks ago, I watched her teach a new server, a kid from a difficult background, with patience I had never seen in her before. I watched her give that kid the same second chance she had been given. I watched her choose to lift others up instead of climb over them. My voice cracked. That is why I forgive you, Emma. Not because you suffered. Because you learned to serve. I pulled a folder from beside my chair, slid the papers across the table. As promised, I am returning the business to you. Not as a gift. As something earned. You will manage it. I will advise. Vic will oversee finances. But it is yours to run. Prove you learned the lessons. Emma stared at the documents. Tears streamed down her face. Mom, I do not know what to say. Say you will never forget what it felt like to earn back what you lost. Say you will teach your child. I reached over, touched her small baby bump. That respect is earned, not inherited. I promise, Emma choked out. On everything I promise. Later, after the meal, Vic pulled me aside in the kitchen. Does it bother you? She asked quietly. That I am her biological mother, that you did all the hard work and I get to watch the victory? You gave her DNA, I said. I gave her skin knees and bedtime stories and lessons about resilience. Which one makes a mother?
Vic was quiet for a long time.
Should I tell her the truth? Maybe someday, when she is strong enough to hear it without derailing her progress. Right now she needs to consolidate what she has learned. Biology would complicate that. You are a better woman than I could ever be. Then be a better mentor. Help me guide her. That is your role. The kitchen emptied as guests left. Just me and Emma remained, standing side by side at the prep counter where I had taught her to cook 25 years ago. I am sorry, Mom, Emma said quietly.
For everything.
For calling you a burden. For throwing you out. For destroying what you built. For forgetting what matters. I know, sweetheart. I placed my hand over hers. And I forgive you. She turned to me, tears streaming.
How?
How can you forgive someone who threw you away? Because forgiveness is not about forgetting, I said. It is about remembering the pain, but choosing growth over grudges. I did not forgive you for you. I forgave you for your baby. So that child can grow up with a mother who learned from mistakes instead of repeating them. We stood there in silence. Mother and daughter. Teacher and student. 2 women who had lost everything and found each other again. People ask me, how can you forgive someone who threw you away? The answer is you do not. Not at first. Forgiveness without consequences is just enabling. My daughter had to earn back what she lost. Not with words, with actions, with humility, with time. Some think forgiveness means forgetting. It does not. It means remembering the pain but choosing growth over grudges. I did not forgive Emma for her. I forgave her for her child, so that baby can grow up with a mother who learned from mistakes instead of repeating them. They called me a burden, threw me out to make room for a husband. Today, I am not just her creditor. I am not just her last hope. I am her mother, and she has finally earned the right to call me that again. I looked at my daughter standing in the kitchen we had rebuilt together, the business we had saved, the legacy we had restored. This, I thought, is what success really looks like. And to you listening to this family story, remember this. I once had nothing, sleeping on that shelter cot wondering if I would ever matter again. I asked God, why did you let this happen to me? And do you know what? He did not answer with words. He answered with people. Margaret, Vic, Joan,
Rose, Keisha.
Every person who believed in me when I had stopped believing in myself. God does not always rescue you from the storm. Sometimes He teaches you to build a boat. Looking back at my own family story, here is what I wish I had done differently. I wish I had taught Emma about humility before I handed her a business. I wish I had made her work the line when she was 20, not 35. I wish I had shown her that respect is not inherited. It is earned one shift at a time. Do not be like me. Do not wait for crisis to teach your children what matters. Teach them now. Make them work for what they want. Show them that mother's revenge is not about destruction. It is about restoration. It is about loving someone enough to let them fail, then helping them earn their way back. My revenge was not cruelty. It was curriculum. And if you are a mother who has been wronged, know this. The sweetest revenge is watching your child become the person you always knew they could be. Not through your bitterness, but through your belief. Here is my truth. Blood does not make family. Showing up makes family. I raised a girl who was not mine by biology, though I did not know it at first. And she became more mine than DNA could ever make her. That is not weakness. That is strength. And Emma, she learned that being a woman is not about power. It is about service. It is about choosing the hard right over the easy wrong, even when no one is watching. This family story taught me one final lesson. Forgiveness without accountability is just enabling. But accountability without love is just cruelty. You need both. Always both. If this story moved you, if you have ever felt thrown away or wondered if you could rebuild, leave a comment. Tell me your story. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe a mother who is struggling or a daughter who needs to understand what it means to earn respect. And if you have not already subscribed to this channel, hit that notification bell because the stories we share here, they are not just entertainment. They are mirrors. They are lessons. They are proof that second chances are real if you are willing to work for them. Thank you for staying with me until the end. For listening to an old cook pour her heart out about the hardest year of her life and the best. Now, go cook something with love.
Hug your family.
And remember, you are never too old to start over. You are never too broken to rebuild. And you are never, never just a burden.